Hi, my name is Ben Duncan, a solutions architect on the ANZ startup team. When you are first building out your startup, it's a common pitfall to over-engineer your architecture and provide too much complexity up front. As technologists, it's tempting to jump into the latest technologies and trends. However, as a startup, it's important to take pause and assess the stage of your startup, in-house capabilities, and to focus on the importance of shipping a product to customers that is good enough for a version 1.0. In this session, learn how other founders and startups have embraced the surprisingly simple architecture pattern to ship software faster, iterate quicker, and get to market sooner. Hear example case studies from customers who have embraced SSA and their timing for introducing more advanced architectures and application patterns as their startup scaled. I joined AWS mid-2020 as a solutions architect on the Australian startup team, having spent the last 20 years building my own startups through the bootstrapped, venture-backed to scale-up phases. While being actively involved in the startup ecosystem, I've spent the last decade building and sharing my vision for the Sunshine Coast to become Australia's Silicon Beach Mecca. I founded my main startup, AppNow, which I bootstrapped back in 2000, later raising venture capital to scale the business. I had the pleasure to grow the business over 15 plus years, powering over 150 million mailboxes using our services to over 3,000 customers worldwide, such as Interpol, Princeton University, KDDI, Singtel, and more. I've gone through the entire life cycle of IT, originally providing traditional on-premise software, to shipping hardware appliances, to co-locating our own hardware at data centers, through to going all in to AWS to power our cloud services. I've also had a few failed startups along the way, punted on various startup investments, and had major product pivots, while enjoying the highs and enduring the many lows of a startup founder's journey. I'm a builder and proud to support Australian startups to grow and scale on AWS. For today's presentation, I will provide the origin of the surprisingly simple architecture pattern, while highlighting the many competing priorities early-stage startups face and why it's important to embrace a surprisingly simple architecture. I will provide example architectures embracing the SSA pattern and how you can simplify your architecture, helping you to ship products sooner and focus on what really matters for your customers. To wrap up the presentation, I'll provide examples where to next once your startup reaches a level of maturity as you face further growth, and a final takeaway on why you should embrace a surprisingly simple architecture for your startup. Having built both successful and failed startups during the early stage life cycle, I want to share my lessons learned and insights along my journey, distilled down into the surprisingly simple architecture pattern. Building a startup from scratch is tough. You have to constantly fight for the right to survive, and with so many competing priorities, it's important to build a simple tech architecture to begin with, and to spend your time and energy on other parts of the business, while avoiding the temptation to be too caught up in the technical implementation and overbaking a solution to begin with. Remember the quote from Reid Hoffman, the co-founder of LinkedIn and PayPal. If you are not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you've launched too late. Building a startup requires you as a founder to wear many hats, from sales and marketing, raising capital, customer support, managing your startup's social presence, interfacing with accountants and legal, building out a healthy startup culture to hire and attract talent, all while juggling many roles simultaneously. While the startup community celebrates founders and encourages people to chase their dreams and follow their passion to launch a new company, let's face it, running a startup is tough, and you need to have a laser focus on where you spend your precious time. While developing a product and infrastructure is a critical part of the startup journey, it's not the entire equation. Don't fall into the trap of devoting most of your time to product development and building out a vastly scalable and fault-tolerant architecture when your startup is still in the early stage life cycle and you may only have a small number of customers, load, and you do not face the scaling challenges and infrastructure as a mature startup company. Resist the temptation to solve imaginary problems for your startup, such as building a highly scalable and fault-tolerant architecture to serve millions of requests. Instead, focus on how you can acquire and onboard your first 1,000 customers and work backwards on what your application and architecture requires to meet this milestone as an early-stage startup. Start from first principles. What is good enough for your version 1.0 to get you to the next milestone for your company? This is the question I want to keep in the back of your mind during the presentation. So, why is it important to embrace a surprisingly simple architecture? Here are my 5 main reasons. Firstly, SSA helps you ship early. During the early stage of your startup, you need to ship a product sooner to customers, not to be tied down with building an overly complicated architecture and getting tied down with feature creep to your application and stack. Secondly, SSA helps you by working backwards. Where is your time best spent for customers, and what feature do you need to ship to win the next major customer? Ask the question, what is required to close out your next funding round or to hit a major milestone for the product? Focus your time on where you can help push the needle most for your startup. Be lightweight. As an early stage startup, you need to increase your runway, reduce unnecessary costs for the required infrastructure, which may be underutilized, over-provisioned, or built for a level of fault tolerance that is not needed to meet your customer expectations and service level agreements. A multi-AZ infrastructure with 5 nines of availability may not be appropriate for your early stage startup. The team's expertise. Take stock of the team's experience. Embrace what you know. If your team are familiar with using a LAMP stack or Java to build out a traditional 3-tier web application, this is completely okay. Now is not the ideal time during the early stage startup lifecycle to embrace learning a new language or technology trend you read on Hacker News. Double down on what you know to get your version 1.0 out sooner into the hands of customers and earn the right to carve out time for future R&D once you have shipped a good enough version 1.0 product. Remember Reid Hoffman's quote from earlier in their presentation. If you are not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you've launched too late. Outsourcing gotchas. If you're outsourcing your tech build or do not have a technical co-founder, be cognizant of the language and technology choices made by outsourcing partners and be part of the discussions and platform selection early, prior to building anything. Ideally, if you are outsourcing your product development, choose a common language or framework, such as PHP, Java, React, that once the work is handed over, this will help you find additional resources or to hire staff to continue development. An outsourcing partner building a highly performant backend written in Rust, using Kubernetes for container orchestration, is most likely overkill during the early stage life cycle of your startup, especially if no one in the team has previous experience with the technology stack and design decisions. Next, I'll highlight examples on how to deploy a surprisingly simple architecture, from deploying a traditional 3-tier web app to launching a static website to reduce infrastructure complexity, including how to leverage managed AWS services for popular open source software such as Redis and Elasticsearch, and finishing with an example on how to simplify application development by using Amazon Cognito for user authentication and sign-up processes. The monolithic 3-tier web app is a proven model, and there is no shame using this tried and tested approach during the early stage of your startup. Note, now may not be the right time to develop a fully microservice architecture, leveraging Kubernetes, such as Amazon EKS, or an Amazon Elastic Container Service. You need to keep things simple to start. Likewise, going down a fully serverless route using Lambda and step functions from day one may not be the best approach for your startup if your team does not have prior experience with these technologies. What are the benefits of a monolithic 3-tier web app? Firstly, it's a simple architecture to begin with, such as using a traditional LAMP stack, which is the Linux OS, Apache, or Nginx, MySQL, and PHP. Remember, the focus should be on shipping your V1 as soon as possible. Monolithic applications are common within small teams. Given you're an early stage startup, your development team will be small and you can work within a monolithic code base without too much friction. A 3-tier web app is easy to manage and deploy. This is a tried and tested pattern. A 3-tier web app requires minimal configuration required to scale within AWS. By using EC2 auto-scaling groups and an Amazon Elastic Load Balancer, your monolith can scale with ease, and more than likely the architecture can handle a large amount of traffic for your needs. Plus, it's easy to tap expertise and hire additional staff as you grow. Monoliths are common, developers will get up to speed quickly, and with minimal effort, you can set up a CI/CD pipeline to test, deploy, and ship your monolith and different environments such as development, staging, and production. Matt Wilton, the co-founder and CTO of OneModel, one of Brisbane's hottest startups tackling workforce and HR analytics at scale. Matt built the initial OneModel prototype and was accepted into Techstars, which catapulted the company's growth and later funding. He sums up their startup journey with, "Our first priority was to ship a product, and building a monolith to start was the fastest way for us to achieve that." Here is a common architecture for deploying a monolithic 3-tier web app within AWS, which consists of a VPC spanning multiple availability zones, an Amazon Elastic Load Balancer to front application requests, EC2 instances within 2 availability zones for the web and app layer, with an optional auto-scaling group for handling additional traffic for peak periods, communicating to an Amazon RDS instance, for example MySQL or PostgreSQL for the database layer view. The classic monolithic 3-tier web app is a tried and tested architecture and can be deployed successfully to meet the demands of your early stage startup. However, there are some things to be aware of while building a monolithic 3-tier web app. These include picking the right instance types to right-size the load. Resist the temptation picking the largest instance type, as it's probably not needed for your user base and load. While deploying the database, rather than installing MySQL on the same EC2 instance as the application, you can leverage Amazon RDS MySQL as a service, further reducing the complexity to manage your application and benefit from the performance, security, and ease of administration using Amazon RDS. Defining your service level expectations for customers. During the early stage of your startup, do you really need 3 to 5 nines of availability? If not, you may be able to bootstrap your first implementation within a single availability zone and increase your startup's limited runway. Likewise, your early stage startup may not require a multi-AZ RDS deployment with so few users to begin with, while meeting your customer SLA expectations. A single AZ deployment can always be configured and enabled for multi-AZ once you hit the first user base milestone or onboard a customer that requires additional reliability. During my main startup at Mal, my team and I built the business on a traditional monolith successfully and to scale for many years. As we further grew and expanded, we began to use microservices for specific new functionality, and as we onboarded the team with additional language and architecture expertise. As your startup grows with additional users and traffic, there are some simple improvements you can make to your monolithic infrastructure to increase performance, security, and resilience. Improvements to consider include caching with Amazon Elastic Cache, which can provide a caching service using Redis or Memcache to remove load from the app and database layer, lowering latency for frequent requests while reducing database load. Edge security for Amazon CloudFront with AWS WAF, which can filter malicious traffic, including XSS and SQL injection via customer-defined rules. DDoS protection with AWS Shield Advanced, which can safeguard your infrastructure against the most common network and transport layer DDoS attacks automatically, which is straightforward to enable protection of your 3-tier monolithic application. And path-based routing with Elastic Load Balancer. ELB supports advanced path-based routing features, which provides the ability to direct requests based on the URI path, such as yourdomain.com/new/API, to another target group, such as an EC2 instance, a Lambda function, or a set of IP addresses. This enables the flexibility to break apart the monolithic app as your team and startup grows, such as spinning up a new microservice to provide an API for a new feature, using Lambda for handling specific functionality, such as a customer uploading an asset via the monolith for processing, or diverting traffic to another EC2 instance, running a particular container for a specific workload requirement. Static website hosting is one of my favorite examples of a surprisingly simple architecture. Why? It's easy, fast, secure, and accessible. There are no EC2 servers required to host your site, and you can leverage the power of Amazon CloudFront and Amazon Simple Storage Service S3. A static website is ideal for your startup website, a product landing page, or a promotion page from a digital campaign. A static website simplifies your deployment and infrastructure immensely. Jamstack is a static website architecture and tooling pattern that is gaining popularity, which peels back the complexity to deploy a website, updating content, and the related infrastructure and ongoing maintenance of a static site. Matthias Vilman Christensen is one of the pioneers of Jamstack and co-founder of Netlify, a platform used by millions of developers to deploy sites. He highlights the importance of the Jamstack with, "At Netlify, we believe that the architecture and infrastructure of your applications has a direct impact on the culture of your company. The Jamstack architecture creates a set of default decisions that lead to simpler, more reliable, more flexible products. Teams using the Jamstack architecture are able to ship faster, with higher confidence and more autonomy. And if things go wrong, they're able to roll back quickly." So what does the architecture of a static website look like? Overall, it's quite simple. Firstly, your domain can be hosted by Amazon Route 53 or an alternative DNS provider, pointing to a unique CloudFront distribution created in your AWS account. CloudFront can be configured to serve requests via HTTP or TLS and retrieve content such as a HTML file, image, or application asset directly from a configured S3 bucket, serving content back to the user in a seamless manner. This approach does not require any EC2 instances, application load balancers, or an application stack such as Apache and PHP to serve content, which dramatically simplifies your infrastructure while leveraging AWS's global edge network and providing a superior performance back to your customers. High level, creating a CloudFront distribution using an S3 bucket to provide a static website is only a few clicks away within the AWS console. Firstly, you can create a new distribution within CloudFront and specify an origin, such as an S3 bucket that contains the static website assets and the domain name you'd like to serve content for, such as yourdomain.com. Using the CloudFront interface, you can create an SSL certificate for your domain, allowing CloudFront to serve HTTPS traffic to your users. Alternatively, CloudFront can be configured as a content delivery network to an existing EC2 instance, such as our monolith in the previous example, an application load balancer, or another HTTP endpoint. Next, you can configure the price class, which selects the edge regions that will cache and serve requests. By default, this is all edge locations globally. However, you can configure this for a specific region, such as the US, Canada, and Europe, to reduce costs. Once the CloudFront distribution is created, a unique cloudfront.net domain will be provisioned for your account, which you can create a CNAME DNS record reference for your domain pointing to CloudFront. And that's it. Well done. Once complete, CloudFront will begin serving traffic for your customers using the global CloudFront Edge network. To deliver content to end users with lower latency, Amazon CloudFront uses a global network of over 215 edge locations and 12 mid-tier caches in over 89 cities across 46 countries. CloudFront edge locations are connected to AWS regions through the AWS network backbone, a fully redundant fiber network that circles the globe and links with tens of thousands of network providers and ISPs for improved origin fetches and dynamic content acceleration. For example, if our S3 bucket is configured within the Sydney region and serving requests via CloudFront to customers in Europe, customers will receive content from the closest CloudFront edge location in their European city, dramatically reducing latency and improving the end user experience. Robert Austin, a senior engineer for StackBit, provides a great summary on the benefits of Jamstack. No servers, no databases, no DevOps. The Jamstack delivers fast, secure sites and improves developer experience by reducing infrastructure complexity. There is a rich ecosystem of tools within the Jamstack community. Two of my favorite static site generators include Hugo, which is written in Go and is highly performant. As a Golang programmer, I have a strong affinity towards open source projects written in Go. Another is Jekyll, a popular open source Jamstack site generator written in Ruby, which powers GitHub Pages, among many other popular online services. If you are not a designer and looking for a template to modify and launch a site, ZeroStatic is a popular theme repository which can help by providing a variety of templates you can download and modify for your startup. As an example using Hugo, a static website can be deployed with ease to an S3 bucket using the Hugo CLI tool. In this example, a local machine has a copy of your static website, and using the deploy argument, Hugo can generate a copy of your static website and related assets, such as images, CSS, and JavaScript, while uploading files which have changed to an S3 bucket you define. Once uploaded to the S3 bucket, you can use the AWS CLI tool to create an invalidation of CloudFront's cache for your modified site assets, or optionally Hugo can be configured to do the process automatically by supplying the CloudFront distribution ID in the Hugo deployment configuration file. The process to build and deploy assets for your static site content can be automated using a CI/CD pipeline, such as AWS Code Pipeline and AWS Code Build, or alternatively, using GitHub Actions or Atlassian Bitbucket pipelines. So when a developer commits changes to your site's Git repo, the Hugo deploy step can be automatically run server-side and changes deployed to an S3 bucket and available to serve customers using the CloudFront Global Edge Network. So how else can you embrace a surprisingly simple architecture? Rather than self-hosting and managing a fleet of EC2 instances for popular open source software, you can leverage AWS services to ship faster, downsize the number of EC2 servers you need to manage, and reduce operational complexity. This will free up your limited time as a founder and the smaller development resources you have at hand, and focus your attention on your application, worrying less about the underlying infrastructure and open source services your stack uses. Popular open source software that power startups include Redis, Memcache, MySQL, Postgres, and Elasticsearch. So rather than spinning up EC2 instances to self-host these open source stacks, you can use AWS managed services such as Amazon Elastic Cache to set up, run, and scale caching services. Another example, Amazon RDS, is a popular service used by startups, providing a MySQL or Postgres database within a single or multi-AZ, which helps simplify maintenance, increasing performance, and allows you to take advantage of features such as automated backups, snapshot recovery, and improved operational security over running such services on your own EC2 instances. Airbnb, during the company's earlier startup phase, previously ran a self-managed Redis deployment over a fleet of 80 plus EC2 instances. This caused significant operational overhead, was hard to scale, and expensive to run. Tony Janap, the technical lead of Airbnb, quotes, "Managed services like Elastic Cache let us focus on the core of our business. Our operations team consists of only 2 full-time engineers. Running a site like Airbnb with such a small team would be impossible without services like Elastic Cache. Spinning up and maintaining nodes in our cluster is fast and easy. Through Amazon's open source contributions to Redis, we've helped contribute code for supporting TLS encryption, client-side caching, and improvements for sharding data within the open source Redis project. Another favorite for implementing a surprisingly simple architecture is to identify where you can reduce development cycles and effort on building your application. For example, implementing user sign-up, access control, and third-party logins is difficult to get right. Rather than building this all on your own from scratch, you can leverage services such as Amazon Cognito or third-party vendors such as Auth0 to take out the heavy lifting. Amazon Cognito is easy to implement within your web or mobile application and provides user sign-up and login processes. It lets you focus on the core of your business needs and helps you ship your version 1.0 product sooner to customers. Features of Amazon Cognito include the ability to facilitate user sign-up by creating an account or authenticating using social identity providers such as Google and Facebook, through to sign-in, identity management, and user flows such as forgot password. Amazon Cognito is customizable, such as setting your own logo, style, and branding for web and mobile. You can use our Android, iOS, and JavaScript SDKs to add user sign-up and sign in to your pages, to your apps with ease. In addition, Amazon Cognito allows you to control the user experience, such as using your own domain name. Here you can see example screenshots of Amazon Cognito, highlighting the ability to customize the look and feel. Within Amazon Cognito, you can quickly create your own directory to sign up and sign in users, and to store user profiles using Amazon Cognito user pools. For the authentication flow within Cognito, users authenticate using your application to receive access tokens, which are then exchanged with Amazon Cognito's identity pool to receive AWS credentials, which control access to your backend AWS resources and APIs, so users of your app get only the appropriate access. You can map users to different roles and permissions and receive temporary AWS credentials for accessing services such as Amazon S3, Amazon DynamoDB, Amazon API Gateway, and AWS Lambda. This provides the flexibility to provide customers access to authenticated resources, such as an asset stored in S3, or to retrieve specific user data stored within DynamoDB. So looking ahead, how do you know you have graduated the early startup phase and you can look beyond your initial version 1.0? During my experience building previous startups, I can share key indicators that you are ready to improve upon your original, surprisingly simple architecture. These include user base growth. You begin to experience performance and bottlenecks within the application and hitting issues at scale. Deploy times may be taking too long. Your original CI/CD pipeline and monolith may be stretched to its limits. As your startup is growing and onboarding new staff with skills, such as building serverless architectures, deploying microservices, and using modern languages such as Rust and Golang, your team's capabilities may have outgrown your original V1 scope. If your startup is fortunate to secure the next major round of funding, this may give you an opportunity and window to invest further to modernize your architecture and to invest in the next phase of product growth. Common questions asked by startups that graduate the early startup phase include: have we outgrown the original monolithic stack? Can we begin by improving our architecture by containerizing our monolithic service? Is it time to embrace microservices and break apart specific functionality within our monolith? Is it time we use an elastic container orchestration service, such as Amazon EKS, for a managed Kubernetes deployment? And are the team open to consider building using serverless technologies, such as Lambda for new functionality, or rewriting parts of the existing application? The final takeaway I want to impress upon you: when you're building out your startup, it's a common pitfall to over-engineer your architecture and provide too much complexity up front. As technologists, it's tempting to jump into the latest trends and shiny technologies. However, as a startup, it's important to take pause and to assess the stage of your company, your in-house capabilities, and the importance to focus your attention on shipping a product to customers that is good enough for version 1.0. So just remember, #shipit. As you join the AWS Summit, to always be learning and growing in your capability as an entrepreneur and to grow your team's skills, there are a bunch of resources online from AWS training and certification, and I encourage you to make good use of them. Thank you. I hope you enjoy the rest of the summit, and I encourage you to take the time to complete the session survey.